The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
By a toe, by a literal toe, Isaiah Likely's toe. That's all it took for the Kansas City Chiefs to leave Kansas City with a W. They win by a toe. We are so unbelievably back with NFL season. It's night one of the season, and we get this one hell of a game on Thursday night. And I'm here to talk about it with you. We're going to save the toe stuff for later in this. It's going to be number 5. Spoiler alert. You can read it in the description. It's going to be 5 of 5s on the 5 things I want to talk about from tonight's kickoff of the NFL season. We'll get to Isaiah Likely's toe. We're going to start with Xavier Worthy because it is the most egregious thing that's happening on the football field currently. And it's going to be the worst thing that's going to happen all season long because the Buffalo Bills continue to be the most confusing, just every decision they make makes no sense. And it's been this way for the history of their franchise. Let's just talk about this for a second because I'm so upset at the Bills for giving the Chiefs Xavier Worthy. On draft day, this year in 2024, because Xavier Worthy, he's a rookie, first-round rookie. He was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, 28th overall this past draft. And to get that 28th overall pick in the first round, because the Kansas City Chiefs were picking with the 32nd pick. They won the Super Bowl. They picked 32nd out of 32 teams. And what happened on draft day? Well, the Buffalo Bills, who needed a receiver because they had just traded Stephon Diggs, decided to move down in the draft. They took another pick from the Bills. They swapped. I'll read this directly from Sports Illustrated, who wrote an article on the night it happened. Late in the first round of the 2024 draft, the Chiefs and Bills swapped 3 picks apiece to allow Kansas City to move up in the draft from 32 to 28 and select Worthy. It was odd because the Bills needed a wide receiver. They just traded Stephon Diggs, they go on to say. And when the Bills traded down to 32 and gave Kansas City that 28 spot, 3 wide receivers went in between the Bills' new pick and where Kansas City drafted. So Kansas City picked Xavier Worthy, and then the 49ers selected Ricky Parasol, and then the Panthers selected Xavier Legette. So 3 guys went, and then Buffalo eventually, with the first pick of the second round, because they went down to the first pick of the second round, selected Kean Coleman. And Kean Coleman's not Xavier Worthy, because Xavier Worthy, why this was so confusing and why everyone's like, why would you allow Kansas City to do this? Because Xavier Worthy on Combine Day set the record for the fastest 40-yard dash ever. Ever. He's the fastest man to ever enter the NFL. And the Bills looked at this player, and they need a wide receiver, and they said, no, we're going to give this guy to Kansas City, who you've seen what they've done with speedsters throughout this entire championship run. All they did was have Tyreek Hill run around and be fast and catch footballs. And then when he left, all they did was get Rashee Rice to run around and catch footballs. All they did was have Pacheco with his little body run around and just take the ball wherever he wanted. And then now they have the fastest man in the NFL. And on day 1 of the season, we saw what he can do, and he looks like he's been playing with the Chiefs for a decade. And the Bills allowed this to happen. They didn't have to trade with the Chiefs and allow the Chiefs to move up to get their guy. There were so many teams in between where the Chiefs wanted to select and then where the wide receivers were going. Somebody's going to pick Xavier Worthy. The Bills should have done it themselves. The Bills should have selected this guy instead of saying, no, we want Coleman. We'll move down, get some other picks, and allow the Chiefs to get Coleman. And allow the Chiefs to get Worthy. Sorry, it makes no sense because if you're not aware of this part of the story, it makes everything worse. This is the second time it happened. The Kansas City Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes right now in their 3 championships and 7 AFC title appearances because the Bills traded with them so that they can move up in the draft and select Patrick Mahomes. That's how the Chiefs were not supposed to select Patrick 10th overall. They were way down in the draft, and the Bills said, we will take your collection of picks. It included a first-round pick the next season and a bunch of other picks that draft. And the Bills said, okay, we'll take all those picks. You get to move up to 10th overall. And the Chiefs wanted Patrick Mahomes at 10th overall, and they selected him. The Patrick Mahomes pick is a Bills pick. And now the Xavier Worthy pick is a Bills pick. They're the most sorry franchise outside of probably the Dallas Cowboys. But no, the Buffalo Bills are the most sorry franchise on planet Earth. And they continue to do things like this. I got to move on to number 2. Xavier Worthy is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to have one hell of a season, and it's all because the Bills decided to allow the Kansas City Chiefs to do this. Moving on. Second thing I want to talk about today, the officiating. The officiating in the NFL the first couple of weeks is always the worst thing in the world. And today, the Ravens got hosed by the refs. The NFL clearly has a mandate. They've announced they have a mandate. I shouldn't say clearly. They do have a mandate to call offensive linemen on illegal formation, or if you're just anybody lining up on the line of scrimmage for illegal formation. But they're specifically targeting the offensive linemen. And they kept calling the Ravens all night for illegal formation. It happened on the second play of the game. The second play of the game, the Ravens get called for illegal formation. And then it continued all night long. And they weren't really called. Juwan Taylor on the Chiefs side got called a couple times for false start because he's always jumping on all over the place and trying to jump the start. But it's just they were picking on the Ravens. And it sucks because you don't go to a football game to watch referees make calls and just have their game management mandates just out there and for everybody to see. That's not why we watch football. Watch football. It was so annoying every single time because it felt like, one, they were picking on the Ravens because they kept calling it on the Ravens. And two, it felt unnecessary because we've seen guys line up like that all along. And football is just perfectly fine with guys lining up where they are. They're supposed to line up with, you're supposed to not be behind the belt of the centerman. And they're saying, oh, you're lining up slightly behind the belt of the centerman. And it's ridiculous that this is getting in the way of the game. And I think the Ravens got hosed a bit there for a few of those calls for illegal formation. We'll see how it goes throughout the season, throughout this weekend, really, as NFL games get underway. And there's another one tomorrow. There's a Friday game in Brazil, which is going to be a lot of fun. Maybe I'll come on here after that and talk about that. But I do have to get my Atlantic Division picks to you. So everybody's waiting for the hockey content once again. That'll be coming up. But it's so annoying to see the officials get in the way of the game. And I think the Ravens got hosed on that. Third thing, Mahomes. Mahomes has got to be a point here because he set the all-time record for Chiefs passing yards. Congratulations, Patrick Mahomes. He did it in so many less games. Len Dawson had the record for the Kansas City Chiefs. He set he had the all-time most passing yards in team history from 62 to 75. In 183 games, he had 28,507 passing yards. In 97 games, Patrick Mahomes broke that record with 28,542 passing yards. So in less years, less games, more yards. Way to go, Patrick Mahomes. You did it. Patrick Mahomes was vintage Patrick Mahomes today. It was spectacular to watch him when he broke the record. Like, that was on a great pass, a vintage pass to Travis Kelce. That was fun to see. The pick that he threw was a bad pick that was picked off the turf by the Ravens. It was classic Patrick Mahomes throwing a bad pick like that and then saving his own butt from a pick when he had a tip pass on third down late in the game in the fourth quarter and he caught the pass himself. Fun to see. But we saw vintage Patrick Mahomes. I think it was 292 passing yards total. Let me see. 291 passing yards, 1 passing TD, 1 INT, only 2 rushing yards, 2 rushing attempts for 3 yards. He didn't scramble too much, but he looked good. He looked like Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs shouldn't have any problem getting back to that AFC title game once again this year when they have Patrick Mahomes playing like this. And if he stays healthy, this team's gonna go deep, and that's what it is. He's the best quarterback in the world, might be the greatest quarterback of all time. He was on his game tonight. It was spectacular. Point 4 I have here, the coaching from the Baltimore Ravens. And I think the coaching for me was a little. I don't know if it's the overall coaching, but it was definitely just the play calling overall for most of the game. The play calling was a little suspect because there's a point during I think we got midway through the third quarter where Lamar Jackson was averaging about like 2 air yards a pass. And I get that your strategy is okay, Lamar's gonna just cook in the pocket and then scramble when he needs to. We're gonna do a whole bunch of running. We're gonna try and get the ball into Zay Flowers' hands. He can do his thing. Derrick Henry will be there when we need a couple rushes up the middle and that sort of stuff. But when we saw them on the final drive push the ball, it worked. It 100% worked. All night long, the O-line was getting demolished. The Baltimore Ravens have a very young O-line. Like it's not great. They got pushed around by a more experienced like guys like Chris Jones just took advantage of the young O-line that the Ravens have. And when you're in that position, there's going to be no time for Lamar. Push the ball. Every time we saw the Ravens push the ball, it worked. And if we get to the final drive, that's when they push the ball the most because you don't give the Chiefs time to get to the quarterback because you give them any time in the pocket. If you just want Lamar to stand there and you say, oh, hey, get some time in the pocket, like drop back and do your thing, then it's not going to work. And I get that it kind of contradicts itself where I'm saying, hey, push the ball downfield, but you need time to push the ball downfield, and he wasn't giving them time. But that's the play calling thing I'm talking about. Like if there's no time for Lamar in the pocket, stop putting him in the pocket. Maybe run the ball Derrick Henry a little more. Run to the outside because the whole middle is going to be clogged. It annoyed me every time I saw Lamar get smothered. And I was like, okay, your O-line sucks. Adjust. And with the final drive, this is point number 5 is Isaiah Likely in the toe in the final drive. The final drive, we saw what the Ravens should have been doing all game. I hate when I see teams in 2-minute drills do everything that they could have been doing. Like getting the ball, swinging the ball out to Isaiah Likely consistently on the edges, it was fantastic. Lamar using his legs when he had to, fantastic stuff. But you saw them get rid of the ball quickly because they had to because of the time. But the get rid of the ball quickly is how you get away from the pressure. Made that point enough. The toe. The point number 5 is Isaiah Likely's toe. And Isaiah Likely, first of all, I feel bad for you if you are out there and you are a Mark Andrews fantasy owner, if you own him in fantasy, because Isaiah Likely is that guy. And if Isaiah Likely's on waivers in your league, go get him because and maybe pay a little because it looks like he's going to be that guy. He was so good at the end of last season when Mark Andrews was out, and he's clearly not going to give up this role at all. And there's a lot of weapons on Baltimore, and he's just another one that Lamar has now. But what a impressive performance out of Likely. I think he's gonna be a stud for a long time, and it's unfortunate his toe was right on the line, but what a way to end the game. And I don't think this is the last time we're gonna see giant games from Isaiah Likely. Like honestly, the dude is gonna be a top tight end for this entire season because he was a top tight end when he was the number 1 tight end in Baltimore last season when Mark Andrews was out. So I don't see any reason that wouldn't continue other than Mark Andrews is more involved in the offense going forward, and it kind of siphons out some of the Likely receiving yards. But I don't see that. I see it more like we should go with Likely because he's the younger, more dynamic player at this point in his career, and Mark Andrews will always be there as the secondary option. It's kind of like Travis Kelce during the regular season with the Chiefs. Like he's not the number 1 option anymore, but he's still Travis Kelce. Mark Andrews doesn't have to be the number 1 option, but he's still Mark Andrews. And I think that makes the Baltimore Ravens even more scary at this point. So the Ravens sucks that they lost this game. It's an unfortunate way to win. I feel for anybody out there who had a 2-touchdown bet on Isaiah Likely, you got hosed. That sucks that you lost your bet on a single toe, and it sucks for the Ravens that they lost this game. And the Chiefs, the champs, they unveiled the banner before the game, and they showed up as the champs. They played like the champs, and they ran away like the champs do, where good teams make their own luck, and they got lucky, and they won this one. So big up to the Chiefs. Sidebar before I end it here. Steve Spagnuolo called a timeout in the second quarter, late in the second quarter. Defensive coordinators can't call timeout. Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, called a timeout. That's illegal. He can't do that. Refereeing bad, not great today. That's against the rules, and the refs just allowed it. So didn't like that at all. I wanted to get that out there. Thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere in the world. We should be watching or listening to this right now, and I appreciate you for that. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe on the Jesse Blake Sports Report YouTube channel. I appreciate every subscription, or hit like on this video if you're already subscribed. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, 5 stars on your favorite podcast app would be great as well. That is it for me. Good night from Toronto.
That is how it's done.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Jesse Blake, the guy that likes to hear his name twice in one sentence. Sure, I know him. No, he doesn't have an ego at all.